Okay, as some of you remember, I got in trouble years ago for making a comment about breastfeeding on an airplane when there was a kid that looked 5 or 6 years old who was being breastfed. And I said, I think the kid's too old to be breastfeeding. And the lactivists were furious with me. The Leaky Boob, another group, was absolutely furious with me and sent me articles saying breastfeeding is okay all the way up to 7 or 8 years old. They didn't convince me, but regardless of that, I actually am very big on affirming the ability for women to breastfeed in public in any place where they can legally be unfettered and unimpeded. And the big news is that breastfeeding has now been legally affirmed in all 50 states. And people might hear that and say, wait a second, was breastfeeding illegal in some states? Well, it wasn't illegal, but it was not legally protected in all places where women are allowed to be. Utah and Idaho have now legally affirmed breastfeeding, meaning it is now abundantly clear, legally speaking at least, that in 50 states, women can breastfeed in any place where they are legally allowed to be. This is actually still controversial in some parts of the United States. How dare women feed children in front of other humans? Babies clearly must be fed in private for some reason I can't really understand. In Utah, some of the Republican opposition feels that breastfeeding is too in your face if done in a public place. Idaho sort of had an easier time this time around, but in the past has had trouble with male legislators who were worried that women would whip it out and do it anywhere. That's a direct quote from some of the prior debate in Idaho about public breastfeeding. I genuinely don't get why this is even something we're still talking about. I mean, not only does this make sense because we shouldn't be shaming women, it also makes sense because the stigma around breastfeeding by pushing women into bathrooms makes it so that more women don't necessarily breastfeed when it's been found that, assuming that there aren't any health risks or particular medical situations, breastfeeding is the best option for the early nutrition of babies. So there's basically two types of breastfeeding laws. Some states say specifically any place women can legally be, they're allowed to breastfeed. In other states, the law sort of affirms or clarifies that female breasts exposed for breastfeeding purposes are exempt from public indecency statutes, right? There are some places where female breasts being exposed would violate public indecency statutes. And the way that breastfeeding is legally affirmed in those states is that it says that if you're breastfeeding and your breasts are out, you're not liable to be charged under public indecency statutes. So more than illegal, what happens here is that we can say we are legally protecting breastfeeding in all 50 states. I've actually seen some pretty big kerfuffles start because of a woman breastfeeding, and I know that people who live in relatively progressive and I guess we would say more enlightened parts of the United States would be shocked to hear this, but I've seen on airplanes, and I'm not even talking about the incident I referred to earlier. I've seen controversy on airplanes about women breastfeeding. I've seen it in restaurants. I saw it once in a government building and also in a hotel lobby. People just get upset and disgusted, and they start kind of going out of their way to look disgusted about what they're seeing. And one I read about is anger about breastfeeding at swimming pools where it says no food allowed. This is one of the dumbest oppositions to public breastfeeding that I've actually seen, and it's more common than you might imagine. No food allowed at swimming pools is because of some guy with popcorn or candy bars where you don't want the wrappers or kernels of popcorn in the pool. Women nursing their kids is not why those rules exist. And even if you don't nurse, I hate to break it to you, but the food is still in the pool area, right? The milk is still there. It's not the eating that you're not supposed to do, it's the having of the food, and that doesn't change. And forget about the spirit of the rule. It's just not why these rules, forget about the letter of the rule, rather. The spirit of those rules is not about a woman feeding her kid. It's the dude with donuts and the melting chocolate bar that caused those rules to be in place. And I just think that this is such a stupid debate to be having. And it also, there's a sort of sidebar debate that correlates with this a little bit, which is that there are lots of places where the topless laws are not gendered. In other words, both men and women are allowed to be topless. Try walking by as a woman topless and see how quickly things will escalate with the so-called moral majority folks. But if you are against public breastfeeding, please email me. I want to hear from you because I just don't get it. What is it exactly that you're opposed to? Discuss this or any other stories from today's show on the David Pakman Show subreddit at davidpakman.com/REDDIT. We will take a quick break. I am in New Orleans, Louisiana at Netroots Nation, and much more about what's going on here coming up later. Today's program was made possible in part by Blinkist.com/Pakman. I love Blinkist. It's the really perfect app for anybody who likes politics and learning. And if you're watching or listening to the David Pakman Show, I'm sure you love politics and learning. And what Blinkist does is take the best and most popular nonfiction books, they condense them into 15-minute audiobooks that you can listen to in one sitting, and you can learn about politics, philosophy, psychology, economics. Often, we don't have the time to actually read as many books as we would like. I know that I'm at my limit for how much I can read. And this way, you can absorb the most important, valuable information from books in just 15 minutes, maybe on your way to work, maybe on your way to the gym, maybe cooking vegan recipes at home, whatever is your thing. And our audience can get a 7-day free trial by going to Blinkist.com/Pakman. If you're watching on YouTube, I've put a link in the video description. And after the free trial, if you like it, and I think you will, you can continue enjoying thousands of condensed audiobooks for just about $5 a month. You can go to blinkist.com/PAKMAN to sign up.